Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of ShatterCast. We have a special guest by the name of Andrew.
Yes, my name is Andrew Lowen. I am a father of 5 daughters. I run a digital marketing agency for small businesses out of San Diego, California. Been doing that for just over a decade, and I'm a huge nerd. I created this game, Deliverance. Kind of was my brainchild of about 4 years ago, just over 4 years now. I can't just have a hobby. I have to be a designer, of a board game. So that's me. So through Derek, what you asked about the ways you can play through a campaign or you can play through a skirmish. So the skirmish would be you bring the game to someone's house for game night and you all just want to sit down and slay some demons, play a game. That is like a 1 to 2 hour experience. And then you've got, maybe like 2.5 if it's your first time ever playing 3 hours, maybe if it's rules and then learning to play it for the first time or whatever. But so that's kind of the way that you can sit down, choose your angel. You're going to level up in a different way each time. Like you have these talents that you're going to, you have like, let's say 5 talents at, level 1. You're going to draw 2 of them and pick one. And so you have a little bit of agency there, but there are 3 talents that you didn't even see. And then by the time you get to you're fully leveled up, there are almost 10 talents that you don't even know what they were. You couldn't choose between them. And it makes players want to try again. They want to play again and see what other options their character has. And so I really like that. And then the campaign is a story that remembers what happened last time. So when you play through your first game, you get, you're going to level up and get to choose any talent you want. Let's say any one of those 5, you get to look at all 5 of them and then level up the one that you want. And so you kind of get to, by the end of the 12 to 15 game campaign, you get to build the character the way that you wanted. And you can even use, let's say, some talent combinations that are not even available in skirmish mode, which is really fun. And so it's kind of how you're able to play.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned being able to kind of want to play again because of that mechanic. And the other night when we were playing together, I felt the same way. And I think it's really cool that I was playing the Archangel Gabriel, and I wanted to play again so I could explore more about his character and see what other talents were and everything else. And I think that's really cool because the replayability doesn't just come from wanting to play the other characters around the table, but from wanting to go deeper on my character. And to me, that breeds a much higher level of replayability because of what you've been saying is, man, I can play this character several times before I've seen everything. And then there's X number of other characters out there that are the same way. So I feel like genuinely, like when this is released and I can get a copy on my table, like this is a game we're going to play several times. Really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And there are also ways to, actually thinking about the talents, there are, let's say, 5 talents at level 1, 5 talents at level 2, and 5 talents that are level 3. And you get to pick between 2 of them at each level per skirmish game. And that, you're doing the math on that, it's 5 times 5 times 5 meaningfully different builds that your character could have. So, 125 different builds for a single character is interesting, and it just is boiled down to a very simple manner. So kind of cool. So it's something that I think I wanted to make sure that there was, that it wasn't easy to just solve the game, because if, like Pandemic, if you play, the first thing you do, you play the medic goes after the farthest away set of 3 cubes, right? It's like the one in Sao Paulo, Brazil, way down there. It's like, all right, he gets rid of that and basically is useless the rest of the game. And then the other people are trying to work over here and the other person works over there. And the
Hold on,
you
I'm
know,
taking notes real fast so I can be
yeah, right.
keep going.
I know.
I have a
I
point of
think I,
contention. I was the medic. I wasn't useless.
yeah. I think I've played Pandemic like 40 times and I've lost one, um, just because I'm so analysis paralysis, math, and figuring it out and wanting to win and all of that. That kind of kills the experience for me. I want to be able to sit and go. A great example of a game that I think does it well, if you ever played Tapestry, it's a newer Stonemaier Games product. Um, it has a lot of decisions that you can make and a lot of decisions that you will make, but you can't really ever think too far ahead in the game. And I think that that's one of the negatives of a cooperative game like Pandemic, is that you have to think like 4 turns ahead. Like, how are we going to clean this disease off the board, or how are we going to, cure that one or whatever.
That's with extra steps.
Yeah. So.
Now, you mentioned playing Pandemic like over 40 times. Can you speak a little bit to the replay value of your game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what we're kind of just talking about, the angels themselves. So at the moment, there are 8 angels, and depending on how we do with stretch goals, there are going to be, I have 7 more that I've designed. And the replayability within an angel, you're going to want to play that same angel, at least I would say 5 times in order to really feel like you played a lot of what's possible. We talked about Gabriel, but let's talk about the philosophy behind the way that I built the angels. Was, if you're familiar with the video game League of Legends, played it a lot, every character is kind of kitted out to do their one thing really well. And you look at a game like World of Warcraft, which has, let's say for a mage, you could choose to be a fire mage, a frost mage, or an arcane mage, and they all play very differently, but it's the same character class. So I wanted each character to feel like they were really good at one thing, like they had their area of what they were good at, and they were super overpowered. They just felt super overpowered. So each character has 3 distinctive builds that you can play that feel very different from one another. For example, Azrael, the Angel of Death, has his 3 builds. The first style is kind of the melee. So he has a giant sickle, like a reaper's scythe, and a very grim reaperish. And so you've got the kind of roguelike assassin that can move and do a lot of melee, wants to be in people's faces and that kind of thing, and very mobile. And then you've got like the plague turret that just sits back and like lobs plague and pestilence far across the map, with his unlimited range type skills. And then you've got the little bit of a combination of the two, where he wants to lob plague and pestilence, but he wants to be close enough to capitalize on bonus damage from his plague and pestilence skills. So he's got like where he deals damage to everyone adjacent to him, that based on the number of afflictions they have or other things like that. So in fact, he even has an ability called the Grim Reaper, where I like to play on some tropes, the things that maybe legends of things people have heard about and whatever, and so he has a skill called the Grim Reaper, which deals bonus damage based on the number of afflictions on a target, that kind of thing. So very fun. Every character has multiple builds that way. One other thing I'll mention is that the combinations of characters that you play are really interesting. And then also the demons themselves, you're not going to play all of the demons every round or every game. You're going to fight against different combinations of demons, and how they work together is very interesting. And how the various demon bosses, there are at the moment 6 demon bosses in the game, they are what I call semi-scripted. So you have some things that that they're going to do, and then other things that you think they're going to do, it just doesn't, you're not sure when. And that's, so the fight will feel similar, but play out differently every time. It's very cool.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of shift here a second. I've got kind of a different kind of question. I'm gonna prime it by saying, when we were playing the other day, you've got the prayer deck, you've got the heavenly treasure deck, you've got the darkness deck, and within all of those, there's a touch of randomness, but there's also things that mitigate that randomness, like as Gabriel, one of the talents I had, let me draw 2 of a certain type of card and pick one instead of just drawing 1 and getting it. There's also on the character sheet, there's abilities that you have that will have an effect no matter what. And then some of them you can also roll a couple of dice and maybe have an additional effect on top of that. So again, there's elements of randomness, but the game itself mitigates it in a very balanced way. And so my question being, for anyone who's listening who might be interested in game design, how did you get to that process when you were building the game? How did you settle on the mechanics? What did your balancing process look like? How did you get to a point where you were like, this is something I'm proud of, this is something that works, and I'm going to stop tinkering with it now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really, it's almost like an ongoing process. I feel like that is game is never finished. It's only printed, in a way. But the first bit of advice that I would have is work in small numbers. If you work in 1, 2, and 3s, it is going to be way easier to balance than 4, 5, and 6s, or 2, 4, and 6s. The reason for that is, I mean, it sounds like y'all are familiar with World of Warcraft, and when you had World of Warcraft, the classic one that came out, like 2,000 damage was a huge number, and then the expansion came out, it was 10,000 was a big number, and then the next expansion came out, it was like 30,000 was a big number, and then 100,000, and then 1,000,000, and they just stopped doing all the zeros across the screen. It was just like 1M for 1,000,000 damage or whatever. It's just like, how this is absurd, And I think they finally just like scaled everything back down because it was so out of control. In order to make something feel powerful, you have to like exponentially increase it. And so what I find is like with Deliverance, where as you level up, when 1 damage becomes 2, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it you do 100% more damage, and so you're going to kill things twice as fast. And then when 2 becomes 4 and 4 becomes 6, it can kind of get a little absurd, where Gabriel will deal, he would have dealt like 5 damage or 6 damage his first turn, but then like the last turn of the game he deals like 80. It's like, it's hard to balance for stuff like that. And so to start with very low numbers really is important. Also, to have a feeling of like where things taper off. So one of the things that an alpha super duper uber gamer will say, well, I'll just game the system and try to like one demon is at like 1 health and sick and can't even catch up, and all the players are doing is running around and gaining a little bit more experience and pimping out their prayer prayer cards and courage and other things like that. There has to be at some point it has to like taper off. You can't just like have this curve of power that keeps increasing. But I mean, you have 3 talents and 5 treasures, and once you get all that, you basically don't increase in power anymore. And that's kind of an important element to have for the game as well. Like, you need to have some rules. And then I think also some randomness is really fun. As much, I played Magic the Gathering pretty competitively for about 8 years as well. And card games, like, by the way, that's a huge influence on the game as well. We were talking about what games influence. The technical writing of Magic the Gathering is a huge influence on the way that Deliverance is written. The cards and the interactions and other things like that. So anyway, I guess there are a lot of different other ideas, but I think the last big thing is make sure that you anchor the game to something that has a set of rules that you can that are easy to understand. I mean, if you have to make everything up from square one, then it's going to be a difficult process. But if you can say, well, let's make the tactical combat like Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem, that is like, okay, it's a grid that's square. It's does you calculate range as a number of spaces away and other things like that. It allows you to kind of have a base of understanding of like, you can liken your design to something. And so really the conclusion of that and what a designer should do is play lots of games. If you know how Zombicide's targeting works, if you know how, Wander's targeting system works, if you know what a roll of opportunity or an attack of opportunity is, or other things like that from just playing lots of games, you'll be able to say, well, I want it to be kind of like this and kind of like that. So you'll have just a base of understanding, which I think, especially for Christian game developers, is sorely lacking in the way that they understand. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I want to create a Christian version of Pandemic, or a whatever it is, or a Christian version of Magic the Gathering, or a Christian version of Dungeons and Dragons, or but it's just there's no innovation there. And I think that if you want to make a great product, you have to be able to innovate, and the only way to innovate is to know what's out there so that you can do something new or combine the same elements in a fun way.
Yeah, this isn't a question, but just piggybacking off of that. Yeah, I'm a pastor. That's no secret here. And when I was in school, in one of my theology classes, I had a mentor who told me one of the best things you can do to get better at preaching is to read good fiction, understand how stories are told, understand how ideas are communicated in really good ways. And I think that's applicable to exactly what you were saying. If you want to make good board games, play good board games.
Yeah.
Understand how good games are created and fashioned, and so it's second nature.
Yeah, it's like I think about for Deliverance, my competition is, and I really, I mean, it's like a, less than $100, let's say. I really am aiming for between $60 to $80 for the game, but on the lower end if I can get it there. But let's say, Deliverance's competition is Gloomhaven, we'll say. Very popular game, Frosthaven, super duper, everyone's excited about that. When Deliverance does what it does, people will say, well, I enjoy Gloomhaven, I enjoy Deliverance, which one would I rather play? And so the competition is, we'll say like a secular game that's awesome. If you make a Christian game where you get to play a disciple that's casting out demons and leveling up and like reducing your sin meter and increasing your heavenly treasure meter and whatnot, and it's an MMO, like your competition is World of Warcraft, where there's PvP and it's like elves and dwarves and, goblins and orcs and whatever. And it just, if it's not better, then they're just going to play the alternative, So it's, I think a lot of the time people will say, well, no, that's not my competition. My competition doesn't exist because there's no Christian MMORPG. It's like, yeah, but, why wouldn't I just play WoW? It's, or whatever it is, like the best in class. Like, I'm going to do that. Like, convince me. Like, the Steven Crowder that has the change my mind thing.
Yeah.
Like, WoW's better than your game, change my mind.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So it's a real thing that I think people have to think about. So
That's really cool. I'm always interested in when faith meets design and art. So how would you say kind of faith has informed the mechanics of your game? And can you give just a couple of examples of that?
absolutely. So it is so integral. I would say, what's funny is I think about Elon Musk. He's had multiple wives, but one of them, I don't remember which one, said this thing about Elon. His claim to fame was PayPal, right? And now he's sending rockets into space. But the woman said about Elon Musk that basically when you become an expert in two areas, you can now combine them in a way that nobody else can, because nobody else has a thorough understanding of these two areas. So for me, the two areas that I understand thoroughly are gaming and the Bible, because I read the Bible every day. I read, a chapter a day or more, or, whatever. And I have for many, many years. Those are two things that I have been able to and, maybe God built me up for that, where I can now combine them in this project called Deliverance in an interesting way that nobody's quite really done before. So faith is so, it's everywhere in the game. One of them that is most prominent is one of the main actions that you take as a player, really the fun, the core of the game. you're battling these demons in tactical combat on a battlefield, but you also have to balance all the damage and all the fun you're having there with the darkness deck, which you can't strike down with a sword. You have to pray, to cast down strongholds, to and darkness. And this is just such a good allegory for how we as Christians need to pray. And sometimes you don't succeed on a prayer roll. So, let's say a card, in the game, for example, A Nation Divided. A lot of the cards, the darkness cards in the game, are like my social commentary on what's wrong with the world. So A Nation Divided is a darkness card that you have to cast down through prayer. And how, we as Christians, absolutely, if you're not praying for our nation, you should be, right? And so to cast that down, you may need to pray multiple times. But every single time you pray, you get to draw a prayer card, because prayer is always answered, right? And so each of the prayer cards have a unique Bible verse. I call it highly thematic flavor text on the back of every card. And so it's like hidden information with a unique card back that's like a Bible verse on it, and it actually relates to what is on the other side of the card. I think that's really fun. There are a lot of other themes in the prayer deck that it talks about a king's courage, where you gain 2 courage, which is this resource that you get to use to unlock your more awesome skills and unleash your more awesome skills. And then on the back, the Bible verse on the back is how Jesus was put on the cross, like how he was on the cross. And the metaphor there is powerful. And to have somebody exposed to that wants the mechanic of like, oh, I need 2 courage, I need to unleash my whatever viral plague of Azrael, but yet a non-Christian person or whatever has that card in their hand that they can read if somebody has to go to the bathroom or whatever, there's downtime, and they get to, I've had lifelong atheists tell me, I've read more Bible playing your game in the last hour than I have in the last 20 years. And they're very complimentary. I've had others that are like straight up. One guy was like, I love the game so much. I love the Bible verses. I thought it was so thematic and this and that. And I would throw away half the games on my shelf just to have this prototype on there right now. And we're card carrying members of the Church of Satan in Germany. It's like, cool. Great. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, And so I feel like the game does a good job showing what we as Christians do, and how, and I guess in a way that doesn't quite feel like I'm preaching at you, but it's just you're basked in this world. So the darkness deck and the prayer deck are quite interesting. And then of course everything, there's Easter eggs everywhere. Gabriel, the messenger of God, one of his top skills is the gospel message, and you get to do all sorts of really cool things, and he's a prayer warrior and other things like that, and just a lot of fun Easter eggs,
Yeah, I felt kind of bad when I played Gabriel. I just kept attacking every single turn and using Discus, and at no point did I ever share the gospel message in that game. I felt like a very bad Christian by the end of it, but it was awesome.
Learned a lesson.
Yeah.
Because this is your first game, right? First
Yes,
one
it is.
designing?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What has surprised you about the process, or maybe something you've learned that has bled over into other aspects of your life?
Well, part of it is, I wonder why I didn't start with just like a 18 card miniature game. Why did it have to be this massive? Yeah. So I learned that a dungeon crawl is a massive effort that has taken. I have a team of play testers around the US, and I have a lot of other people that are helping me make this thing great. I know that because it's my first game, so what I came in not understanding was how to design a game. This is over 4 years ago now. And so I knew that, as a small business owner, I knew that I needed smart people that know how to do the things I don't. So I immediately sought out mentorship and sought out, when the times came, great graphic designers that were, or great artists or highly experienced gamers One of my greatest advice givers has been my buddy Brighton, who actually is Uriel in the game. He's in the game as Uriel, a little taller than Brighton is in real life, but I'm sure he likes that. The the way that a game feels, if an elite gamer knows how something's supposed to feel, they can tell you what's wrong, and they can't tell you how to fix it, and it's not their job to tell you how to fix it. It's their job to tell you, this felt like, I know we're playing angels and fighting demons and stuff, but it felt like I was moving tokens on a board. It's like, well, I wanted it to feel like you were mighty angels, casting down strongholds and slaying demons and melting faces, and didn't feel like that. It felt like tokens on a board. And part of the real key for me has been to get that feedback from highly educated people, highly experienced gamers, seasoned game designers, to tell me this game's bad. And I mean, I think the color has drained from my face like at least 4 or 5 times when designing Deliverance, and butterflies in my stomach, knowing that what they are telling me is right. And it's going to take so much work to fix this, and Sam Healy is a very well known board game personality. And I played Deliverance with him on a couple of occasions, and we're buddies now. And he just told me the first time he was like, I love it. It's great. And then the second time he was just like, some other element came up, and he was like, there is a ton of downtime. And he was like falling asleep, and part of it was like the players were taking a long time thinking about their turns or talking a lot or whatever. And it was late at night, but man, it showed like what ended up being, there's just way too much dice rolling in this game. I have to figure out how, which is why now there's deterministic combat of now when your ability says deal 2 damage to something, you just put 2 damage tokens on. You don't have to roll dice to see if you hit it or what happens, and I mean, there have been so many moments that are just, I mean, it would be, and I see this in Christian, especially Christian designers, but also other game designers. They will create a thing and they're like, I play tested this and it's great. Everyone gives me great feedback. And the person they play tested with it was their mom, or their friend or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I like it. It's like, well, would you buy it? It's like, it's just like they're more like being nice to you. You need to find people that will be mean to you and tell you what you don't want to hear. And you need to be able to shock and amaze those people with what an amazing product. And, I think Deliverance has been play tested over 600 times now. Well over 600. In the last month, it's been played 40. It's crazy.
That's awesome, man. Well, we spent a long time talking about mechanics. I know some of us have gotten a chance to play with you, and we've gushed a little bit about that. Andrew did not pay us to be on the show or to say these nice things. Legitimately just a great product that we've seen so far. So, Andrew, what's next for Deliverance? How can the people who are watching or listening, how can they eventually get their hands on it? What does the future hold?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So we just unveiled miniatures. So we're doing angel minis for Deliverance. There are a couple of, for me, the critical path of Deliverance. I think about the things that need doing before it's available for purchase. I have the map my artist is working on. I have a sculptor working on miniatures. I'm designing the campaign right now. And, those 3 things are kind of the critical path. And then when those things are done, and let's say if we knock down a bunch of stretch goals on Kickstarter, I need more angels and other bosses and other things to put in to the game, but eventually we're going to Kickstarter. Kickstarter.com is a website that we're going to use to raise funds to actually print the game, and hopefully to make a very special version that no one else will ever have, because of economies of scale and lots of people buying it allows us to put more cool stuff in for the same price, really. So where you can follow is deliverancethegame.com. You can go there, you can see some of the art, you can join the email list. If you join the email list, then you'll get an email sent to you right away that shows you the Facebook group, the Discord channel. Those are 2 great places that you can get information as well. And I send usually a once a month email, And then I'm very active in our Facebook group, which if you search for Deliverance, the board game, you'll find it on Facebook. And, you know, those are great ways to get in touch. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, follow the game. Really, I guess I would encourage people watching to be a Berean and test. You know, I know a lot of Christians are very cautiously optimistic when they see the art. I mean, you know, you've got Michael the Archangel with his like sick tattoos and his sword. Makes the right type of person very optimistic that maybe this game could be good. But I really want people to test it out and see for yourself. The art. I try to make the art so high quality. I mean, you know, I had one publisher tell me like, dude, I could have done that in 8 hours. I could have done art that would work for a card this big in 8 hours. Why did you take 50 hours? You know, why did you pay an artist 50 hours to do Michael the Archangel or whatever? It's like, because it has to be good. I mean, Magic the Gathering spends like $3,000 on a card for an artist to do that. And I don't want to have crud art, you know. I mean, it needs to be good. It just has to make a statement, you know. I have to be proud to share this, you know. And it's so anyway, you know, I want people to learn more about the game and to test it to see if it's, number one, if it's theologically sound, if it's, you know, I mean, 95% good and 5% bad is a game that you can't really play as a Christian, right? Or whatever it is, like a game that claims to be Christian but is really going to lead you astray, is like this danger, you know. And so I think that Deliverance will really hold up to the test, you know, put it to the test, and it's just going to make you more excited to back it. It's going to turn you into a raving fan, I hope.
People who play this game who might be Christians, what would you love for them to take away from it? Especially those who might be a little cautious about some like creative liberties, or why does he make this angel look like this or whatever.
Yeah.
So that would be question number one. Question number two, follow up, would be people who play this game who may not be Christians, what would you want them to take from it?
Those are great questions. So the first thing, let's talk about the angels just a second. So there are certain things about Deliverance that are not theologically sound, and they're that way on purpose. One of them is the angels. There's actually no evidence that angels have two wings. There's no evidence that there are female angels. I will say, you know, there's, I believe, Zechariah 5:9. I can't remember exactly. Maybe it's 19. Anyway, talks about women with wings that were carrying this basket, and it's like metaphorical, I think. But anyway, there are certain things that are not theologically sound, and the angels are probably the capstone. Seeing a female angel, been told I'm going to hell for the female angels as well. So which is fun, you know. I mean, I just joke about it, you know. It's something that some people just don't understand, and they're maybe well-meaning, I hope, but misunderstood. So again, the game is an allegory for how people fight spiritual warfare. So I want to see people represented in the game. So your character is basically just a good-looking person with wings of a different culture. You know, we've got all sorts. I mean, I have a very interesting family. You know, my buddy Brighton, he's Hawaiian. My sister-in-law Jessie, she's Native American and African American. I've got you know, my wife and her brother are Greek, and you know, all that kind of thing. And I wanted the angels to celebrate different cultures around the world, and I wanted people to see themselves in the characters they're playing. I wanted, like, there's this little girl that a guy who's a playtester of mine now. He has a daughter who's half white, half black, and she went and was looking at she's 9 years old and was looking through the characters, and Shula is a character that is my sister-in-law, is, you know, half black as well. And I made her a character in the game, and the little girl picked that card up and was like, Daddy, I want to play this one. This one looks like me. It's like, that's what I want. That was so cool. Just gave me such warm fuzzies to feel like that. And so what I'd like Christians to pick up from it is I'd like them to see something that they can be proud to share. Just they're proud to share. They don't have to worry about it, you know, preaching the gospel to somebody in order to win the first battle, or, you know, educating people, you know, really like this. I don't know if you ever heard of, like, I mean, there are lots of games like this, but, you know, throw a fireball at the goblin by typing this sentence. It's like, well, I'm that's totally like, I'm not playing a game, I'm learning how to type, and it just feels like that. Same thing with like, here's a game with angels, but really learn these 10 facts about religion, like recite the 10 commandments from memory and deal bonus damage or whatever. It's like, there's nothing like that forces somebody to know about Christianity or whatever. What I wanted you to like suck you into this world that like now you're a part of it and you don't know all the things, but dude, there's demons attacking you and you got the power of lightning because you're Christine or whatever, right? And so I want Christians to see that this is something that they can be proud to share, whether it's Christian, whether it's with a non-Christian, whether it's with, your mom who's a non-gamer or whatever, there's something that you can be proud of with what's in this box, And for a non-Christian, it's kind of you're able to take your guard down and step into the lore of the Bible. I call it the magic circle. Is this kind of this theory that we just are going, let's say we're watching the Avengers, and great movie series. I love Marvel's The Avengers. And so let's say we are in Black Panther. By the way, there's a metal called vibranium, and we can somehow fashion it into kitty claws, but you can't break it. But somehow we can chip it into kitty claws. Like, I don't know how, but we do that. And by the way, there are trains that run underground, and there's this little place called Wakanda that's got an asteroid there, and it's really cool. And Black Panther's like wicked awesome, and that's just the way it is. It's like, okay, these are things, or like Avengers, when you see like Scarlett Johansson doing like that leg scissor on like every bad guy, like all the beefcake aliens, she just like leg scissors and they die because of the leg scissor or whatever. It's like, this is not real life, but they're superheroes, and we are just kind of entered this magic circle where in this little circle we accept that there are superheroes and Thor can fly and command lightning, and that's normal for this universe. So for Deliverance, it's like there are angels, there are demons, and there's the devil out there. Angels are good, demons are bad, Satan's the worst, and that's just the way it is. It's like, we're building a story upon this base of lore. And so I think that for a non-Christian, they can take away that it's a really fun way to enter into this world that you've never experienced before in this way, without having to worry that you're going to be proselytized. So there you go.
Cool. Can you make that into a bumper sticker? Angels are good, demons are bad, Satan's the worst.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll buy it.
That's awesome.
That's great. Does anyone else have any other final questions for our esteemed guest?
Just one last question for me. What is one question you wish interviewers would ask you?
Oh, man. Well, I actually really enjoy talking about the theology behind the game. There's just been so much work that I've put into demonology and angelology and studying these things so that I can represent them well. And if I make a choice to be, go the fantasy route, which is totally within the realm of what the game is, it's a fantasy game. I know why, or what the real, truth is, and why I'm deviating from it, and all of that, and why, I know why it's not contradicting the Bible, and so on and so forth. But I really do enjoy talking about those types of deeper theological discussions of, I don't know, I'm just about angels. Like before we started the recording, we talked about Genesis chapter 6 and how the Nephilim are very interesting. And was it angels that came down and had babies with women, or was it not? And, I love talking about those types of things as well. But that a lot of the time is really maybe over people's heads, or just total tangent from what it is that we're making.
But I love that, and I love that you've done the research and that you're trying to reflect faith in God and good principles in everything you do, and you're making conscious choices. Like at Shatter, we do crazy things like comic books and podcasts and stuff like that. And for example, of our comic books, I tell everyone that it's either a retelling of the gospel story or it's theologically inspired, which gives us a little bit of creativity to do what I think God enjoys us doing, play and be artful, but it's all based, there's reasons behind all of our decisions that's based on the Bible. And so I'm seeing the same thing with Deliverance, and I personally think that's a great thing. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, one of the things that like all of the demon bosses, for example, you've got Herod the Great, which really kind of was inspired by the story of Herod and all the baby Jesus and whatnot. And I look at it like, oh, these are the demons behind the spirit of the very real person. But there was a demon that had to be working with that person, or and so a lot of it is, I mean, every element of Deliverance, there is like a Bible story that ties directly to that guy and his lore and whatnot. And it really helps. I mean, it really helps limit me in a positive way. As a game designer, you really need those limits. In your sandbox, you can move anywhere in the square or the rectangle, but don't go outside of the sandbox. And there's just so much material to work with that I think is, deserves to be talked about. And so it's nice that in the game, it's a game, but in the hands of a minister it can be used for ministry, and the hands of a teacher it can be used to teach. So I really enjoy that about the game. So I oftentimes, actually, I'll mention one card in particular. So with non-Christian people, what I will often talk about is the bronze serpent. It's a heavenly treasure, which is the like a bronze snake wrapped around a pole, and it kind of harkens back to Moses and the bronze serpent that he put on top of a post to heal people that got bit by snakes. And I always talk about the crossbar. There has to be a cross, because otherwise, the block of wood had to have a crossbar, because if it didn't, the bronze snake coiled around wood would fall off. And so historians agree that it had to have a crossbar. And that is such a perfect depiction of Christ on a cross. He became sin for us. He, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, and all of that. And so it's just a cool little thing that you get to tell people, like, yeah, this is a thing that happened, and this is, it's fun. Lots of little Easter eggs like that.
Awesome. Well, Derek, Hannah, thank you for joining us for this interview. Andrew, thank you so much for coming, for talking about this thing that you've created. Definitely enjoyed this conversation. I hope that you, our listeners, have enjoyed this conversation as well. Remember, you can go to deliverancethegame.com, sign up for their email list, get on their Discord channel, check out their Facebook group. Deliverance the Board Game is the name of the Facebook group. Deliverancethegame.com is the website. Thank you for checking us out. Thank you again, Andrew, so much for coming. We love you guys.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. God loves you. We love you. And we'll catch you.
Azrael, the angel of death. Oh, my baby. So you have Azrael, the angel of death, who has 3 different ways to play. So I guess I'll go over this again. Hang on.
You're fine, man.
I'm not sure where that baby went. My wife let out a chuckle.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, she's fine. She's fine.
That's all okay.